Hello, this is Brian Tracy, and welcome to the Goals Teleseminar. In the next few minutes that we spend together, I'm going to share with you some of the most important and powerful ideas that I have ever learned in an entire lifetime of studying successful people. All over the world today, I meet people who've gone from rags to riches, who've gone from poverty and frustration to affluence and success. And every single one of these people tells me over and over again, sometimes with their eyes shining, that it was the miracle of goal setting that changed their lives. And that's what we're going to aim at doing today. Some years ago, a group of very successful businessmen got together in Chicago, and one of them told me what happened some years later. They were sitting around talking, and they'd all started off with very little. Most of them had started off with nothing. They'd come from poor families, blue-collar families. They'd made a lot of mistakes and failures in their lives, and today they were all wealthy. And they were sitting around after a beautiful dinner in a lovely restaurant, and they were saying, why is it that we, of so many people, could have become so successful? And they went around and said, well, maybe it's because we live in America, and maybe it's because we were more determined, and maybe because we worked harder or we had the breaks. And then one of them said something which stopped the conversation, and which I never forgot. He said, gentlemen, he said, success is goals, and all else is commentary. Success is goals, and all else is commentary. And suddenly they all realized it. It was their ability to set goals, to write them down, to make plans for their accomplishment, to work on them over and over again, to make new plans when the old ones failed, to keep picking themselves up and moving toward their goal that enabled every one of them to be successful. And that's what will happen for you. When I started off, as many of you know, I didn't graduate from high school. I started off in the half of the class that made the top half possible. I bombed out of high school, and the only job I could get was washing dishes in the back of a small hotel. And when I lost that job, I got a job washing cars in a car lot. And when I lost that job, I got a job washing floors with a janitorial service. I actually thought that washing was in my future. And by the way, the word lost when you're young is a euphemism for non-voluntary career or redeployment, which is when you get an opportunity to explore new careers unexpectedly. So I got fired lots of times. And I went from job to job. Sometimes I was out of money. I got thrown out of my house when I was 18, didn't go back for a decade. I lived in my car in the wintertime. I slept next to it in the summertime. My car was what you called a junker. And so I always had a bunch of tools in the back so I could fix it up. And sometimes I'd have to lay under my car next to the side of the road and replace universal joints. And one day I had to replace a clutch, and I had to repair brakes. And sometimes I had to do valve jobs and so on to get my car going. Much of the time it didn't go. And I went from job to job. I worked on farms and ranches. I worked in construction labor, carrying heavy things. I worked in factories, putting nuts on bolts. I worked as a seaman on a Norwegian freighter in the North Atlantic. When I was 23 years old, I was an itinerant farm laborer. I was working on a farm during the harvest, sleeping on the hay in the farmer's barn, eating with the farmer's family, and working from dawn till dusk to get the harvest in before the first crop. I was uneducated, I was unskilled, and at the end of the harvest, I was once more unemployed. Now, sometimes when I'm on television or radio, and I've done more than 4,000 interviews, people ask me, what was the turning point? What was the great moment for you? What changed your life? And what used to frustrate me, because I know that I had done so many things. I've read thousands of books and tens of thousands of articles, and I've worked for years, sometimes 12, 14, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, 2 or 3, 4 years at a time, until I was so tired that my face was black from exhaustion. And it was never one thing. And one day, in frustration, I started to think, is there really something that turns your life around? And then I realized that there were 3 turning points with me. It's almost like you're going to turn a U-turn. You turn right, and then turn right again, and you're going off in a different direction. Number 1 is when I decided to accept responsibility for my life. At the age of 20, I had this incredible epiphany. I was working in a factory. I was broke. I had no money. It was cold outside. And suddenly I realized that everything that was ever going to happen to me for the rest of my life was going to be up to me. Is that no one was coming to the rescue. That no one was going to do it for me. Nobody cared but me. And up to that time, well, I'd blame my parents, and I'd blame my boss, and I'd blame the economy, and I'd blame my education, I'd blame my mistakes. And then I realized that it doesn't matter where you're coming from. All that really matters is where you're going. And that everything that ever happened to me from then on had nothing to do with the past. It had only to do with the future. And that was the turning point. That was when I put my hands on the steering wheel of my own life and made the first turn. Now, about 3 or 4 years later, when I was in my mid-20s, I tripped over, stumbled upon goals. and I read something that said, decide what you want, write it down, make a plan, work on it every day. Well, that was pretty simple, so I grabbed a piece of paper. I was living in sharing a cheap room in a rooming house. I grabbed a piece of paper. I wrote down 5 or 6 goals I wanted to accomplish, and I promptly lost the piece of paper. Within 1 month, my whole life had changed. Within 1 month, my income had exploded. I had moved up in my field. I had been promoted to manager of 22 salespeople. I moved out of a boarding house into an apartment. It was the most amazing thing, and it was exactly what I had written down. It's almost like touching a hot electrical wire. When you start to write down goals, you'll be literally astonished at the things that happen to you. So that was the second part. The third turning point in my life, and this is the one that never stops, is I found that you can learn anything you need to learn to achieve any goal that you can set for yourself. Is that in order to achieve something you've never achieved before, you must master a skill you've never had before. You must learn and do something you've never done before. You must become someone you've never been before. And so at that point, I dedicated myself to lifelong learning. I accepted that I was responsible. No blaming, no excuses, no complaining, no criticizing. I decided exactly what I wanted, and then I said, now what do I have to learn to get it? So the starting point of success, and we'll start off, we'll call this number 1, is to decide exactly what you want in life. Exactly what you want. And the way you do this is you idealize. And idealizing is the hallmark of the superior person. Idealizing is sort of like fantasizing or dreaming at the beginning. But what you do is, instead of saying, well, I don't have any money and I'm set back with this and I have these problems, what you do is you imagine that you have no limitations. You imagine you have no limitations and that you have all the time and all the money and all the friends and all the contacts, and you have all the connections and all the education and all the experience that you could do, be, have anything you want in life. If you could wave a magic wand and have anything you want in life, what would it be? There are 4 main areas of life where you wave this magic wand, and you idealize, you dream, you imagine, you project into the future, and you dream of what your future could be like if it was perfect. And the first area has to do with your income. All successful people I know have a clear plan every single year for how much money they're going to earn that year. And they break it down to how much they're going to earn each month, and sometimes how much each week and each day. And then what they do is they say, exactly what activities will I have to engage in each day to earn my money on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis. And then every single morning they get up and they start working on the most important thing they can do to achieve that financial goal. And a week, a month, a year later, they look up and they've hit or they've exceeded their goal, and people say, boy, you were sure lucky last year. It wasn't luck at all. If I were to give you a brand new car, beautifully running, give you the keys, give you a map, give you a clear destination, even give you a GPS system in the car, and I say, go straight there and get the prize, and you got in the car, followed the GPS system, went straight there and got the prize, nobody would say it was luck. All you did was follow your plan. So the rule is, idealize and imagine what it is that you want. Imagine how much you want to earn this year, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years, and so on. And ask yourself, what will you have to be absolutely excellent at doing in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in order to earn the kind of money that you want to earn? Look around you and ask, who else is earning the kind of money that I'm earning, and what are they doing differently from me? And remember this, nobody's better than you, nobody's smarter than you. If they're earning more money than you, then they've just figured out how to do it before you have. They've just asked the questions, and usually they've asked them of other people or read books or gone to courses or listened to audios. They've learned what they needed to learn to achieve the goals. And whatever they or whatever hundreds and thousands of other people have done, you can do as well. Nobody's better than you. Nobody's smarter than you. The second area where you set goals has to do with your family. And it's really important to think, if you could wave a magic wand and your family life was perfect, your house, your home, your car, your travel, your lifestyle, the schools your kids went to, the lifestyle you had, the vacations you took, the clothes they drove, the things that you want to do for your family and with your family, ask yourself, if you had no limitations at all, what would they be? If you had no limitations at all, what would they be? One of the most important goals we have in life is to spend more time with the people that we care about the most. And what we have to do is build our lives around that.